All right, here's some information you need to know about King James. King James was the sitting king when Shakespeare's play was written and performed. In 1566, King James was born, and he was born in Scotland in June. In December, he was baptized as a Catholic. This particularly is important because Catholicism, in some ways, was at odds with Protestantism, another sect of Christianity. In 1567, in June, his mother, who was the queen of the country, she gave up the throne because the people did not like her. They were dissatisfied with her. And one of the reasons they didn't like her is because of religion. Thus, when King James was crowned, King James VI, he was crowned in a Protestant ceremony instead of a Catholic ceremony. Interestingly enough, he's King James VI in Scotland because he's the sixth person named James to ever be the king in that country. But the question is, how old was he when he was crowned? He was 1 year old as a king. Also, what religion did he represent following the coronation? Do you remember? He was crowned a Protestant king, even though he was baptized as a Catholic. In 1568, just a little bit later, his mother, Mary, she moved to England. She fled because she was terrified for her life. And in England, she was imprisoned by her cousin, Queen Elizabeth, who was a Protestant queen. Remember, Mary was Catholic. Some people speculate that she was imprisoned because of the religion, and some people also suspect that she was imprisoned because she was related by blood to Elizabeth, and thus was a threat to the political power that Elizabeth held. In 1582, King James was kidnapped. Guess how old he was? He's about 16. Until he ruled, he was kept in secret until he was old enough to rule. At this point, though, he gets kidnapped. And while Mary is in prison, she tries to form an association so that the two of them can rule Scotland together. He politely ignores her letters and does not reply. Eventually, he officially renounces the idea, and his mother, Mary, is later executed. In 1589, he gets married, and on his honeymoon, he travels to Norway and Denmark. But on that trip, he has some boat problems due to a storm, and one of the things he always remembers after that day is that a particular woman was muttering at him as he was on his way down to the dock, and he's convinced that she was a witch. In 1603, Queen Elizabeth dies in England, and she has no kids to succeed her on the throne, so various people make the case that they are the most appropriate choice. King James ends up being crowned King of England, but since no one named James had ever been King of England before, he's crowned as King James I in England. The question is, at this point, what religion does he represent? Theoretically, he represents the Protestant religion, but he's a kind of middle ground person. He sympathizes with some Catholic ideas. Some of those ideas include being interested and fascinated by witchcraft. He even writes a book on witchcraft. He's so interested in it. He also develops a taste for miracle healings by touch. Why do you think a politician would want to be known for curing people by touching them? A lot of people suspect it's because it's politically expedient. It makes you look like you're a very powerful person. And if you're ruling with the hand of God, God who can create miracles, then people are less likely to try to overthrow you. In 1604, he's been having some conflicts with other countries, but in particular with Spain, which is Catholic. And Ignatius Loyola, who's the founder of the Jesuits, is one of his staunchest adversaries. Jesuits are militant Catholics, and because James is a middle-of-the-road Christian, they have no patience for his beliefs that are more tolerant. In 1605, King James overcomes what people call the gunpowder plot. It was a plot to blow up Parliament. They were going to stash kegs of gunpowder underneath Parliament and blow the whole thing sky high. And not only does he save himself, but he saves the whole governmental system by overthrowing it. There's a number of people that get convicted in this plot. One of them was a man named Guy Fawkes, and today, on November 5th, they still celebrate the day of his execution. There's another person who was convicted, whose name was Father Henry Garnet, and in Macbeth, there's a pseudonym used for farmers, a pseudonym of Father Henry Garnet, and that name shows up in the play, in the Porter's lines, in Act 2, Scene 3. Macbeth just so happens to be performed this year, and one of the reasons it's important is these Jesuits, especially Father Garnet, were responsible for what's called the doctrine of equivocation, and it was a guide on how to lie to the king so as to protect yourself. And it was a special way of lying, so that you would lie to the king, but you would not lie to God. And the play is very heavily steeped in people not telling the truth and doing what's called equivocating, which is the use of ambiguous language to obscure the truth. In 1611, fun fact, King James has the King James Version of the Bible published. It's the one that's probably in your house and that's probably in the hotel that you stay in. It is widely known for its artful language. And in 1625, King James, he died.